Welcome to the Brunswick Virtual Tour. This home's exterior features custom changes, including stunning stone around the garage area, adorned with the elegant Laurel Cavern Asher stone option and complemented by Scottish thistle vinyl siding. The roof has been elevated to a 9/12 pitch and is accompanied with shake-style vinyl and accent windows on the gables. Step inside to discover an interior that stays true to the original plan with subtle modifications to meet the homeowner's needs. Throughout the home, you'll find durable and stylish LVP flooring. Showcased here is Ballard 980 smoked. In the kitchen, new Catalonia granite countertops are paired with white Sinclair cabinets, offering a timeless traditional flair. The brushed nickel hardware really adds a touch of elegance to the space. The home does offer a versatile space to the front, ideal for a home office or living room or potentially another bedroom. The dining room is conveniently located right off the kitchen, providing the perfect setting for gathering and meals. Next, we'll head on over to the owner's bedroom. The whole entire home on the inside has been painted Sherwin-Williams City Loft. The Brunswick does have a touch over 1,800 square feet with 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, and a 2-car garage. And we will head into the owner's bathroom. And this space features a luxurious 42 by 60 tile shower with 12 by 12 tiles. We see the color here, umber, and a fiberglass shower pan. And here is the walk-in closet for the Brunswick. Here is bedroom number 2. Bathroom number 2, which sits right in between bedrooms 2 and 3, and here's bedroom number 3. And now we'll head on right back outside to see the stunning screen porch. This really offers a tranquil space, perfect for relaxing, enjoying this beautiful lot that these homeowners have. Today, we are diving into land selection for custom home building. The journey of sifting through possibilities and weighing up all the factors to find that perfect piece of earth for your custom home. Here at Value Build Homes, we get it. Land isn't just dirt, it's the place that your home will be built. When it comes to custom homes, picking the right plot isn't just about finding the right location and aesthetics. It's all about considering every little detail, from the slope of the land to the shade of the trees, because each aspect could absolutely shape your home's future. So we'll be breaking down all the crucial factors you need to know before you get into land ownership. Utility connections, check. Topography, you bet. HOAs, absolutely. But hey, we're not here just to talk theory. We're actually going to be grabbing a real-world example of a piece of land and show you how to dissect it like a pro. We're talking GIS mapping and topographical surveys. So our mission today is, at the end, to arm you with the knowledge, insights, and resources that you need to know about land selection. And the first thing that you need to do is know what your budget is for the land. We always encourage our potential homeowners, when they are first embarking on this journey, to reach out to a lender to figure out what their true and actual budget is. Then take that number that their lender gives them and divvy it up into 3 different buckets. And doing this will allow you to not spend too much in one area and not have enough in another. And this is even more critical if you don't have land already. You want to make sure that you go into your land search with a budget in mind so that you don't get too excited. Hey, my lender gave me a budget of $200,000. Let me spend $75,000 on the lot. And then you end up not having enough for the home that you're truly looking for. So as we move through, I'll kind of explain each one of these segments. And then at the end, the very last slide is actually that real world example, the budget that we came up with and what the decision was made at the end. So definitely keep this in the back of your mind because we'll actually be coming back to it at the end. So since you don't have land, you actually really have a lot of freedom to figure out where you want to be. And there's a lot that can go into this. Some people have, a certain zip code. They'll have a town that they're looking to build in. Some others might have like a tri-county area that they want to be in. Maybe they're looking for certain features. Maybe they want to be next to a particular lake. They want to be close to mountains. They want to be closer to the beach. There's a lot that can go into this, and this is very personal to you, but it's definitely something you want to determine. Where do you want to be? Next up is, what does your lot look like? So if you want to close your eyes and kind of envision what you want your land to look like, do you see yourself like in the middle of a field? Do you see yourself in the middle of the woods? Do you find yourself driving down a long dirt driveway? Do you see yourself coming home from work? You're driving through downtown. You are pulling off that asphalt road and onto your concrete driveway. Whenever you step out of your imaginary house, you're looking at your backyard. Is there going to be a lot of slope to it? Is it relatively flat? What kind of views are you seeing? And this is really going to help determine what kind of lots your lot specialist might recommend for you. And this is also going to affect some of those lot improvement costs. So whenever we are coming up with that initial lot improvement budget, we can put in some pretty good generic numbers based on what you're looking for. All right, so things to consider. The very first thing are your utility connections. This includes things like water, waste systems, power. And just to touch on water real quick, you have 2 main options here. You have well and public water. As far as costs go, generally tapping into a public water source is going to be less expensive than well. Typically in those more higher population areas, that's where you'll see those tap fees being more expensive. To figure out whether or not a property is serviced by public water, you just need to give the county a call and they'll do an address lookup and be able to tell you whether or not there is availability to tap into a public water source. When it comes to waste systems, again, you have like that public versus private option where you can either 1, install a septic tank, or 2, connect into a public sewer system. You're looking at kind of the same thing as water, where that tapping into a public sewer system is generally less expensive than putting in a septic tank. When it comes to waste systems and water, both of those you are going to want to consider how that length from the source to the home is going to be, because you want to consider your water line and waste lines. The less far that it is, the less money it's going to cost you. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then you have power. We definitely want to make sure we have temporary power set up before we start construction. And then once construction concludes, you'll usually just submit the CO to the power company and they'll set up power, permanent power. The next thing to consider is clearing, and costs really can vary quite a bit when it comes to clearing. Just because each property, like the density of foliage, the type of trees that are on the property, really can affect the costs that come with clearing. Also, when it comes to clearing, you're not just clearing for the footprint of the home. You also want to clear out any sort of front yard, backyard space that you want. If you want that mile-long driveway from the road, you also want to consider clearing out that driveway. Also, any sort of like septic field, that also needs to be cleared out. So those are all the areas that need to be considered when you have, especially a more like densely forested property like this middle picture here. The next thing to consider here when it comes to clearing is what you're going to be doing with the debris that's left afterwards. Are you just going to push it to the corner of your property? Are you going to have it hauled off? And that again is going to affect your costs as well. Next up is topography, which is really just a big word for how does your land lay? Is it super hilly? Is it relatively flat? And the reason this is so important is it's really going to determine your foundation costs. And here's the benefit to you not having your land already is you can kind of go in and almost like pre-select what kind of foundation you prefer and find a piece of land that's really going to suit that foundation. So if you are wanting to save on overhead foundation costs as much as possible, you're going to want to go in and maybe find some old farmland that's going to be like incredibly flat. This is really going to cut down on those foundation costs. Now, say you're from like the Midwest, you've always had a basement, can't imagine your life without it. Maybe you're going to want to go in and find something with a little bit more slope. That way, whenever the foundation is built, you can have, your like walkout basement here. Here's your door. You can like build your house on top of that. That way you can still have that basement that you've always wanted. So there's the two ways to approach it, and that's why there's always that advantage with you not having land already. You can really kind of pick whichever foundation you want and find a piece of land that really suits it. The next thing to consider is your standing water. So this is actually my backyard here, and there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to water itself. You might have like a really fun creek that's at the back of the property. Well, after a huge rainstorm, it might not be that really cute bubbling brook anymore. It might turn into like a raging river. So you definitely want to look for some like indicators of what happens during a big rainstorm. I know like in my particular case, whenever I moved in, it was like very obvious that this area kind of collected water, even though I didn't really see anything here. The reason being is all the water on my property kind of drained down. You can see like it creates this like bowl shape here. Also there's a willow tree. Willows love water, so that's why it's like really successful in growing there. And that's why the first winter I moved in, I had this really fun pond for a couple of weeks, which was pretty nice. In theory, it was nice, but it was really good to have seen that. I ended up putting a culvert in that spring, so that does not happen anymore. But it's good to know these things up front to figure out, is there a solution to this issue, or is it going to be too much of an expense where I need to find a different piece of property? If you have the option after a rainstorm to visit a piece of property, I definitely recommend it. That way you can kind of see some areas that might, just hold some water. Maybe we can grade it out to where that doesn't happen. Next up is surveys, easements, setbacks, lot dimensions. You'll see this all on a survey, and this is absolutely going to be a required document here at Value Build. First and foremost, this is going to tell you exactly what the dimensions of your lot are going to be. So you can see right here the dimensions of each one. Also, it'll tell you exactly where your property is located. So you can see this right here. And you'll see like pinpoints at each property's corner in this instance. And the reason this is so important is we want to make sure we build the house on your property. We also want to make sure there's no sort of easements. We come across like utility easements Those are things where, you usually have a utility company that needs to have access to a particular piece of a property to do any sort of maintenance that's required. So you'll see like an easement underneath like a power line. We also have like the Dixie pipeline that goes through North and South Carolina. The pipeline company needs to be able to have access to that. Next up is zoning, deed restrictions, outstanding liens. These are all things where your realtor, your closing attorney, your lender, they're all really going to be more responsible for these types of things. But overall, you just want to make sure whenever you are looking for land that it's going to be zoned residential. That's kind of the main thing. Next is like your HOAs, neighborhood covenants. HOAs just really wanted to protect the integrity of a neighborhood. You don't want a hot pink house if everyone else's houses are a shade of beige. So they're definitely an important thing just to maintain the values of everyone's property. So whenever you see like a lot of homes around you, I think it's just a natural indicator that there might not be like a proper HOA in process, but there actually might be some covenants in place. Now, what I have seen are these places where it's like old farmland and they've divvied it up into like 8 or 10 lots. And I'll actually see some covenants with this. So you always want to make sure you and or your realtor are digging into each lot that you're looking at, even if it seems like it's in the middle of nowhere and there's no houses around, to make sure that there's no covenants that are already in place. I haven't seen anything too wild with these. For the most part, I've seen like you have to have a concrete driveway and a side load garage. Those are kind of some things, but there's going to be some costs associated with that. And you and I, we might have been totally fine with a gravel driveway, but if the covenants say you have to have a concrete driveway, you just have to do it. And that may or may not make you want to pass on a particular piece of land. All right, so now I wanted to dive into a real world example. This is definitely like a really wild example. There's a lot of issues with it, and that's why I think it is such a great example. All right, so all the tools I'm going to show you are things you 100% have access to. They're all free tools available to the public, but these are things we're also looking at on our end to prepare ourselves for our lot walk that we're gonna go on. So we absolutely do free site evaluations, and we want to make sure we do a little bit of research before we head out there, just so we have like a list of like pros and cons before we go out there, any sort of issues where we actually want to set eyes on them. So this is the example. So you're like, wow, I fell in love with this lot. This is exactly kind of what I've been looking for in the area, the size lot. This is great. The first thing we're going to ask for is the listing, because this will actually tell you quite a bit. So first off, this is at the end of a cul-de-sac, which is always like a prime location when it comes to a neighborhood. You generally see like less traffic at the end of a cul-de-sac, so that's why people like them so much. Our first kind of thing was, hey, this costs like $16,000, and the location of this lot first like made us threw up a caution flag, basically. When it comes to land, if the price is too good to be true, there's absolutely a reason for it. With land, you get what you pay for, absolutely 100% of the time. So the fact that this was $16,000 and for this size lot in this location was instantly like caution flag. Also, the next thing that we noticed here was days on market. It was basically a year. And with the way that land sales are going right now, any good piece of land is not going to be sitting around for a year. Also, we're just going to, read through any sort of property details, definitely beautiful at the end of a cul-de-sac. This is great. There's no HOAs, which is really good for your monthly or yearly budget. HOAs typically have a monthly payment or a yearly payment that you need to make to them. Great price, below tax value. See protective covenants with documents. So we do know that there are some documents on file. So the home will have to adhere to those covenants. So we already kind of have like a list of things that we definitely want to research a little bit more. All right, so we love using Google Maps here because, again, they tell us like a lot of information. And overall, when we kind of look around, this looks like here, let me highlight where this lot is. So it's right here. And you can see this is absolutely like a really great location. You can see it's like heavily wooded all the way around, which is really nice as far as like privacy goes. People really like that. I would say like another like little bit of a caution flag that gets thrown up here is the fact that this is an established neighborhood. So it's instantly like, hey, you know, why did the developer not build a house here when they were building all the rest of them? So, you know, that's something that we definitely want to like look into a little bit more. We're already having some like caution flags being collected here on this piece of property. A established neighborhood with a vacant lot. Why is that? And the reason why this is we'll usually see developers that leave a few lots undeveloped, and that's just because it takes a lot of money to develop it. Maybe there's a lot of slope with it. Maybe that's where all the water drains. And believe it or not, they try to sell these lots, even though it's essentially unbuildable unless you put a lot of money into it. So that's why, you know, we throw caution when we see a developed neighborhood with a lot that hasn't been built on. So next up, what we want to do is look at Street View. Again, this will actually bring up a ton of kind of information for us. What we can see here is the look of the neighborhood has a very consistent home style, and this is definitely a style that Value Build can achieve. So this looks great. Also, everyone has concrete driveways, which, come to find out, is one of those things that are in the covenants. You had to have a concrete driveway, so that's definitely an expense that needs to be considered. They're all also kind of set back from the road a little bit. You know, they're not super close. The size of the lots are also pretty good. You know, they're not like super built up on each other. You know, I think like neighborhoods nowadays, they probably would have put like another house here. So it is really nice to see how far apart these homes are. Also, next thing that I'm seeing is there's definitely a lot of topo with this neighborhood. We see like a lot of slope happening here, and it is like very evident based on the type of foundations that are on these homes. Everyone has these like garage basement type things, and you can see this basically in every home. So just by looking at Street View, we've added some things to our list here. Hey, concrete driveways are a must. You have to have a tall crawl, a basement, some type of overheight foundation, because this area is very hilly. So this is what's going to take us next into the county GIS. When it comes to finding this, all you really have to do is type in your county name and then GIS, and it'll pull it right up. Every county is a little bit different with how they have it set up on their website. So whenever I need to look up something, I'll just, type in Forsyth County GIS, Dillon County GIS, Brunswick County GIS, and it'll pop it right up. And then you'll just click on whichever, you'll just click on the GIS that needs to be clicked on. And what's so great about this is there will be map layers that'll be placed on the map, and each one of these things just has so much information associated with it and really can tell you a lot about the area that you're looking to build, as well as the particular lot that you're interested in. So I always like to make sure that I have boundaries, lot boundaries. This just really makes it easy to determine the lot that you're building on, which is this one. I also like street names. This is always helpful for me, like to figure out where the lot is at. And then really the first map layer that I like to have on is anything associated with water. I'll just turn them all on. Each county will have some different map layers, but they tend to have like the same ones. Anything like dealing with like flood zones and then like protected water sources. They'll have rivers, ponds. So I just like to check each one of them that has to deal with water. So here we can see there's a stream right here. And then each one of those map layers kind of had a flood zone and flood way. So that's what each of those colors means. And basically you just don't want to build in that area, which you can see, right here, which is kind of neat. Just because like your property might have like a flooded area to it doesn't necessarily mean it's like out of consideration. If you have like a big enough lot, like something like this, you can build right up here and you're totally fine. Your home's gonna be great. You just have to be mindful, you know, hey, I probably won't be putting a chicken coop back here because it's gonna get flooded. But when it comes to water, we are high and dry up here. There's really no effect to that property that we are interested in. The next map layer is topography. So this is basically how hilly, mountainous, or flat that the land is in. We can tell that this area, it's towards the more western part of the state, so this is really where you're gonna see a lot more and more topo happening. The closer that the lines are together, this tells you that it's more and more hilly. And so when we zoom into this particular property, we can see that there's a lot of topo happening here. Let me highlight it real quick. However, you know, we're definitely probably gonna have some overheight foundation costs, but at least it's not down here where those lines are even closer together. We're up here where it's relatively flat. So that we have that going for us at least. However, whenever we turned the like lot dimensions and we zoom in a little bit more, we can see this note right here, the 125-foot build line. So seeing this was definitely not a great thing. And this is telling us that the home needs to be built way in the back of the property. The reason why this isn't good is just that map layer I had previously shown, where there is a ton of slope here. And also, this is where all the trees on the property are, so you're gonna have some clearing costs that were not initially considered when we were like, wow, this is a great piece of property. We can build up here and you have a nice wooded backyard. And you can kind of see that with some of these other houses. We have the 50-foot build line, the 125-foot build line. So because of that, I mean, it's really going to increase that budget because you're having to build way back here, and there's going to be some costs associated with that. Also, just like on aesthetic reasons, I don't know how much of this would bother, but if you're going to be like way back here, you're going to be looking into like your neighbors' like backyards, which could be like a little odd for some people to do. And some other things to consider, not only do you have some overhead foundation costs that are going to happen with a lot of clearing costs as well, you're also going to have like a really long concrete driveway, because remember, concrete driveways are required in this neighborhood. And you're also going to have a really long water line and a really long sewer line to go to the house as well. So all of these costs are really going to stack up. So we definitely like confirmed these things when we went out and did our lot evaluation. We put our own eyes onto it, tried to see if there was any other solutions. There really wasn't one. So to go back to the initial buying power example, this is what this particular customer had started off with. They wanted to find a lot at or below $25,000, which actually worked pretty good because they did find one below $25,000, which was great. This made us all very happy. However, what wasn't great were the lot improvement costs. All that stuff really stacked up when we figured out that we had to build 125 feet from the road. We had those clearing costs, we had grading costs, the driveway cost really put us over, as well as the overhead foundation costs really added up. And so with this example, we can see that there really wasn't enough left for the home. We can build a home for 122, but it really wasn't a home that would meet the family's needs. So ultimately, the customers had moved on from this piece of property. They found something a few months later that really worked for them. So this is why establishing that budget up front is so great.